Well, dude, we didn't belong in that place. I tell you, we were.
That might be why she thought you were cute.
We were. We
She's
were
already seen the tatted bikers. She
we
wants a
were.
dad bod. Hello and welcome back to Hindsight is 50-50. I'm the host J Rod with my co-host, the ORG old retired guy. Dad, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm doing pretty good. It's a sunny day in Michigan in February, even though it's only about 40. But those are good days, and there's not enough of them in February here. So not too bad. Not too bad. Are you you're feeling better now? Because I know we missed a week, and I know you had, you were fighting some things.
Yeah, unfortunately we had to miss a week because I I got sick, of course, from the kids,
Yeah.
But the little ones were sick. Actually, it must have been pretty aggressive because even Melissa got sick and she fights everything off. But the boys, they were able to fight it off in about 2 or 3 days. They still get a little stuffy here and there, but for the most part, they're over it. And Melissa the same. For me, a lot of congestion, a lot of sinus pressure, all symptoms of a sinus infection, except for, the mucus actually looking infected itself. So it was a pretty good time. Yeah. So,
Sounds
that
like it.
it's been a lot of clearing the throat and all that. But I think I'm about, I think I'm past the sickness and probably like 80%, 90% recovered. So that
Well,
part's
when
good.
you were able to come down and bring Melissa and the boys and watch the Super Bowl. We were able to watch the Super Bowl together, which we do pretty much every year, it seems, and that's a good thing. I got to bring up one thing that's not on the list.
Okay.
And I just thought about this. Now you know the story already, but it was a nice day. The day of the Super Bowl, and the game doesn't start till 6:30, and your oldest son, JJ, he likes to help me. And I wanted to go out in the yard because it was a nice day. It was like 54, and it was a nice day. And I asked him if he'd help me pick up sticks because I've got all these wild cherry trees and they shed all kinds of stuff. And he is such a good helper. I mean, because he's anxious to do it. And I gave him some of my, safety sunglasses. You know how I am with sunglasses. I got 20 pair of them. And I found a pair that fit him. And he and I went out and we get on the quad. And I put this little basket on the back of it and we picked up a whole basket full of sticks. Well, our new neighbors, they came by. They're building a house. We can't even see it from our house, but back down the road a ways. And they stopped because JJ and I were out by the road. And he was amazing. He's not only an amazing helper, and I have so much fun doing that kind of stuff with him, but they stopped and the lady was on the passenger side and closest to us. And I introduced JJ and he stuck out his hand and he shook the lady's hand. And as he was doing that, the husband got out of the vehicle and came walking around to shake JJ's hand. And we stood there and talked for a couple of minutes. And, and JJ sat there politely and, he was just standing there listening to the conversation. And and I said, well, we got to get going before the games starts. And I wanted to get done, but I want to get my best helper out here. And the lady gave him a cookie. And you saw how he was with that cookie. He brought it in and he saved it for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
before he ate it. And it was just, a packaged cookie that like an Oreo, but it wasn't. But anyway, as they were leaving, the husband gets back in the car, and as they were leaving, this 3-year-old boy says, "Nice to meet you." I just about fell over. I mean, I had never heard him say that. I was just they just, they were texting me after that, you know, during the Super Bowl about how impressive of a little boy he was. And but that was great fun, and that's I'm not going to forget that
He's a
for a long
fascinating little guy.
I'm not
And
going to forget that for a long time.
the only problem with his brain, because he's definitely unique, but he's definitely intelligent. But the only problem is that because he's so smart, when he's mean, you know that he understands he was mean. And so it's
Well,
like, buddy,
yeah.
you don't get to act like, oh, I'm the most brilliant kid ever over here, and then turn around and shit on your brother and go, I'm just 3. Sorry. It's like, that's not how it
Well,
works. You know what you're doing.
he's trying to
Like,
play both sides.
yeah. I mean,
But
like,
he's smart
like
enough
when
to do that.
he and Jamie will get into it already sometimes. And
Yeah.
it's like Jamie will start pulling him down because I think Jamie's already the same strength, if not stronger than JJ.
And he's
But
1.5, and
yeah,
JJ is almost 3.5.
yeah. And
Yeah.
JJ will, outsmart him and outrun him and all that. But if JR gets a hold of him, then it's trouble. And the other day, they're rolling around, and Jamie took a toy from JJ and rolled away. And this is what I mean by he understands too much. Instead of like snatching the toy or swiping at Jamie to piss him off, he lifts up Jamie's shirt and slaps the living shit out of his belly. Like skin to skin. And it's like, what is wrong with you? Like, you just 5-starred your brother and you're 3. And there's
Well,
no one that's ever taught you to do this. I can promise you that.
right. Right.
But it's like he knows that without the shirt on, it's going to sting.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, there
Well,
you go, you
I
son
tell
of a
you,
bitch.
I just, and I've said it and I'll keep saying it, these windows don't last forever. And right now, he thinks going out on the quad and working outdoors with grandpa is a pretty cool thing. And I just want to do that as often as I can because it's he's a really good helper. He's a lot of fun. He does exactly what I say and how I say
He's very good at following
without,
instructions.
yes. And I mean, it's just like talking to him. I mean, I'm just, okay, no, you can't break that stick. Let me show you how to break it. And, and, but that, when he said, nice to meet you, I just about fell over. And like I said, they haven't moved in yet. They seem like really nice people. But they were blown away too.
We
It was
JJ and I
fun.
built Lincoln log cabins the other day, and
Yeah.
we had done it
Yeah.
once before, and it was painful. But we did it again. I don't know, 2 days ago. You wouldn't believe at how capable he is of picking up tasks and understanding what you assign him. You can tell him what the piece looks like, and he might grab the wrong one, and he'll go, not this one, and he'll find the right one, and then he'll bring it to you. And you go, yep, that's the right one. And then you tell him how many you need, and he'll count them out, and he'll bring them to you. And then I just put them in separate piles so that we have all the pieces for the little design that's on the pamphlet. And he will he'll stand there and he'll go, JJ's turn. And I'm like, yep, you're going to build it, but daddy's going to tell you where to put them. And he built both of those, like a pole barn for horses and a little cabin house for cowboys. He built both of them, and I didn't put a single thing together. It's incredible. I
No, he's
understand that seems like a little feat and that he's my son, but just
no,
watching
it's
the
cool.
wheels spin is awesome.
Yeah, that's my favorite part is watching on all of them. whether it's Jamie or Jackson or any of the kids, Dallas or Montana or Juliana, any of them. It's like I love watching the wheels turn, and you can see their think. And he does. You're right. He does that a lot. But he's just, I cherish these days where it's still fun to go out and tinker around with Grandpa. So I want to take advantage of those as long as they're around. And then we get to watch the game, and I had I had a Alan and I talked earlier today, um, and we talked a lot about the game. And there were calls in that game that we looked at them 10 times, and you and I still didn't agree, and
Right.
that's okay. And we're looking at it in slow motion, and we're looking at it from all these different angles. So I don't want to go all Roger Goodell and say officiating's perfect. He didn't say that, but he just says he doesn't think it's ever been better. And I'm not sure he's not right, but I do agree that there are errors made even with replay. That holding call at the end of the game was ticky tack. Um, you know, a guy sees a jersey tugged, he has the right to call that. But that you and I talked, that happens on every play. I mean,
Yeah,
offensive holding happens on every play.
the issue I had with that was the catches are one thing, right? Because the
Yep.
catches are under the player's control. If it's questionable, shame on you for not making it not questionable.
Right.
But with the holding call, in my opinion, especially that situation in the game, and I know there's going to be people who go, you can't break the rules or change the rules just because it's this point in the game. I actually completely disagree with that theory, because you do not want. I don't think it's good for the game to use a penalty, especially of all rules, but a penalty to take the opportunity away from the players. And to me, that I was thinking about like other big games, especially Super Bowl, that were just dissatisfying, because that's
Right.
what this was. This was a
Right.
great game that one call took it out of the players' hands. If they
Right.
don't call it, it's still which team's better.
Right.
And the only other Super Bowl I could think of was Patriots Raiders with the tuck rule.
Well,
And
and yeah,
it's like or
that was a
before the
playoff
Super Bowl.
game.
Sorry, that
Yeah, that
was
was a
yes,
playoff game, but it was postseason. Yeah,
yeah.
in a winter advance. Yeah, yeah,
And to me, that was one of those games where it's like, regardless of which side you're on, whether it was a tuck or not a tuck, or the fact that none of us even knew that rule existed, whatever.
right. That's true.
Um, it just it was dissatisfying. It left a bad
Well,
taste in your mouth, and that's how I felt about the Super Bowl. Is like, I this might be the first year that I've walked away genuinely feeling like we didn't have a winner, because it was just handed to him right at the end,
that
and it was a tie game.
it was a bad time. Gave them a first down. Gave them even a closer field goal, and allowed them to run the clock down to nothing.
And I think
Which and
I
that
think
was
a rule
3rd and
change needs to
18.
happen.
That was 3rd and 18, Jared, when that play happened. And
Yeah,
that
and
defensive
you're well
holding
within the contact zone of 5 yards.
and that well, that's automatic first down. And so they get to run the clock down to nothing. The field goal
Well, their
gets
running back,
shorter.
I mean, that was a hell of a play, just sliding.
But
I mean,
do you yes, that was smart. Do you remember this one? And this was when Goff, and this wasn't Super Bowl, but it was a playoff game. Goff played for the Rams, and the Rams ended up advancing to play the Patriots. But there was an interference call late in that game that was blatant pass interference. I mean, it was a mugging, and the Rams were on defense, and it was near the end of the game, and it was deep in LA territory. And that was when they allowed you to challenge Like that precipitated allowing the rule to challenge interference because there was they didn't call anything. And I mean, it was, do you remember that? I
I
mean,
do.
it was
Yeah.
a mugging.
I mean, it was all about a tackle.
Yeah. And you're right. At the end of a game like that, I'm in as one of Jacob's friends says, I'm in agreement. um, I'm in agreement with you. It's like that's a pretty
I just
when they
we're
take it out of the player's
inconsistent,
hands.
right?
Yes,
Like
yes,
we're very inconsistent with the calls, even with replay.
yeah.
So and I think you and I agree on this. Replay is taking way too long and too much time, but I still think there needs to be a rule change. The first thing I think of is like targeting. You know, first the player was ejected no matter what. Then they changed it to where the player wouldn't be ejected, but you still got the penalty. And they've changed it now, right? To where you can revert it.
I think so. Yeah,
So the whole thing's reverted, and it took years, and it was very frustrating. But I think we're at that point now where it's like we need to look at the end of the game and how it's so important. You don't want to turn the NFL or college football or any of that into the NBA where the first three quarters don't matter.
that's true.
But you still have to prioritize the fourth quarter. And so, and maybe not even the whole thing. I mean, they've got all these rules inside of 4 minutes, all this stuff. Like you have to be running forwards when you go out of bounds, not backwards, or
Right,
else the clock
right.
runs. All kinds of crazy rules. And that's fine. But the way I think it needs to be separated, or at least my idea of it would be there should not be an excess of reviews on anything but fourth down and scoring, fourth down conversions and scoring plays or a turnover if for three quarters. And then when you get into the fourth quarter and you get inside of 4 minutes, I think that penalties should be something that's reviewed in the booth. And if they see something that was called, they buzz down. If we've got proof it didn't happen and it was called, or if we've got proof that like a runner got face masked and pulled to the ground and they didn't call it. There I think you can add that there, but the only way you can do it without making the game time so long, it would be to have that more passive first three quarters. Because again, when we're talking about the holding call in the Super Bowl, I mean, anyone in their right mind sees that replay and they go, "You can't call that." And maybe that's what it is. Maybe you can't add a penalty, but maybe you can just wave one off if it's inside of 4 minutes or inside of the 2 minute drill. But it's like, I do think there needs to be something there. You know, I was thinking about big games that have been ruined by penalties at the end. And I believe it was the game that Willis McGahee got his knee destroyed when he was in college, Miami, Ohio State National Championship, I believe. And at the end zone, there's a pass interference call. And so Ohio State got another play and won it, I believe. I might be misquoting that, but
No, I think you're right. I think you're right.
and it was one of those things where you're just sitting there going, "What?" That guy's been pushing off all day. The defender's been tugging his jersey all day. They throw a ball, it goes through both of his hands, but he happens to drop it with the physical play that's been happening all day. And now we throw a flag? You just
Yeah,
took the game out of the player's hand.
it's unfortunate, and that was a ticky tack call. Now, Alan brought up something the about Chad Henne today. Chad Henne, Michigan quarterback. You know him, I know him. We
Best
always
slant to
said
ever exist.
great best slant. Yeah. Short slants, throws them better than anybody and can still do it. He just retired, I guess.
Oh,
This
really?
guy, yeah, he played 15 years and I think he was a second round draft pick for Miami. Played there a minute, played in Jacksonville for a little bit. And as he retired, now I don't know how much money he was making, but he
Oh,
played in the
God.
league 15 years. And So the veteran minimum for a 15-year player has got to be like $3 million.
Well,
And
and he started for a couple of years, so he's
he
higher than the
he
average backup.
he won a playoff game a few years ago when Mahomes got hurt.
Man,
and,
I
and
understand people run out of gas and you got to do what you got to do. But if I'm Henny, I'm looking at what happened to the 49ers going, boy, I can ride the bench and make a lot of money in San Francisco right now.
you know what? I think he's done that, and he's only about 36, 37 years old. And he even said, this backup quarterback thing's a great gig.
And someone may call him mid-season. Can you
Uh,
still throw?
you
And he'll be
know,
like, yeah, I can
hey
throw.
man, he's better than the Lions backups for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
You
What
know,
we get, the
but
pre-K kids, or I can't
but
remember.
but
Blouse
no,
the size of my left nut.
and they cut him.
Yeah, I know, but and he's a good dude. Like I
Oh
just,
yeah, it's a nice
but
guy.
come
Yeah, for
on.
sure. Well, yeah, and we had, the kid from Indiana. Oh gosh, it's just anyway. I just thought it was cool what Henny said. And you got a guy who played a long time, and I think I've mentioned before that knowing a guy's dad, but I knew his dad, Gary Hogeboom, played in the league for a while, and I knew his dad through work. And Gary Hogeboom, he started some, but he was mostly a backup. Well, man, if you play 10 years, your pension gets to be significant in the NFL. And Chad Henney's got that. He's still got his health because he rarely played.
I gotta look up his net worth.
And he's a smart guy. So it's like this is all good. And I just thought it was cool because he's a Michigan guy. And he's got 2 rings, man. That guy's got 2 Super Bowl rings. This is awesome. This is a great career.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine. Like the hardest thing about that would have to be, um, like, and obviously it's easy to say you do it for millions, but it would be knowing you're not gonna play and still practicing very hard for that long, still staying in shape all year round. Yeah, I mean, like you look at Chad Henne, and he's still a fucking fit dude. He's not Sean Smith with like a beer gut at QB. And I mean, he was a good backup, but he wasn't really in shape that often.
I'm showing his net worth is 17 million.
That's what I've got as well.
And
And
then
I've got to imagine that is um, strictly off of what they believe is remaining from his salary,
right.
not including endorsements or investments.
Oh, for sure. Well, that's Gary Hogeboom. In the Grand, and because he was from the Grand Rapids area, he's like a big time real estate developer in his NFL retirement. He is
So
like one of the players over there in development. That's a rapidly growing area. I show his 2020 salary is the last one I'm seeing.
I got the 22,
Oh,
and it's a
what
little
was
bit
it?
higher. It's 1.12
Okay.
with 880,000 signing
Signing bonus.
to fucking chill.
This is no, and what a great story. And it sounds like, and because he played with Kansas City for a long time, and that Andy Reid had confidence in that guy because he knew the offense. And it's like, and people say, well, Chad Henne, he never plays. He's no good. Well, Andy Reid had a lot of confidence in him. And when he had to play, he showed up.
So I've got
This is a cool story.
his career, and I do think it would be um I can do average salary and signing bonus if you want, or I can just do the total. But
Just the total. Yeah.
he goes from the Dolphins in 2008 to 2011 with 3.13 million, including signing. Then he goes from 2012 to 2013 with the Jaguars and gets 6.75. Then he goes from 2014 to 2015 for 8. Then he goes from 2016 to 2017 for another 8-year contract. Or I'm sorry, that's part of this. No, that's a new contract. That's a new contract with the Jaguars. And then he signs a 1-year deal with the Jaguars for 3.25. Then he signs with the Kansas City Chiefs in 2018 to 2019 for 6.7. Then he signs with the Chiefs again from 20 to 2021, and it was supposed to be, I think, renewed from 22 to 23, but he got 3.25. I don't know what's guaranteed, but it looks like his base salary for last year was 50% of that.
Well, if he played, he likely got most of it, because as a backup, he's not going to sign a deal with a ton of incentives. So he
But you
probably
know how
got
the
most of
seasons are
that.
different than the years.
Oh,
So
yes.
it's like the
Yes.
2020 and 2021 contract, the second year of that might be 2021-22, or it might be 22-23. I'm not sure. So I don't know if he signed a new contract for 22. It looks like a new contract. So it looks like he got paid that 3.25 in 21 and then signed one more 1-year deal for $2 million in 22.
Well, this year, the winning player on this each player on the Super Bowl winner got 157K for that win.
That's awesome.
And he won another one. So no, it's a cool story, and I know you had sent me that link to the Kelsey Brothers podcast, and that was and I had already seen that, but I watched it again, and that was just cool.
Well, I
That
thought it was
was
really cool that two brothers got to play on opposite teams in the Super Bowl. But
yep,
then on top of that, they both play offense, so they didn't have to oppose one another, so they could still root for each other to do well.
yep,
And even like early on in that game, the cameras were on the sidelines and stuff looking at each one of them. And Jason, who's the center for the Eagles, pulled and made a huge block, and there's a really big running play. And then, like one drive later, Travis caught a touchdown pass from the tight end position. So you could see their joy back and forth, and that was really unique. But with what I sent you from the podcast, it was them talking about um, family, but also their interaction at the Super Bowl. So Jason ended up losing. He was on the Philadelphia Eagles. He went up to Travis and just said, "Congratulations, I love you," and walked away. And later on the podcast, they talked about it, and he just said, I knew that Travis would feel bad for me. I knew that he would have that kind of somber feeling knowing that I lost in the Super Bowl, even though he won. And I didn't want to take his moment away from him. So we just had an exchange and walked away. And obviously that's brotherly love, but I think that shows a ton of respect. And then they kind of spiral off of that and they start talking about their family
yeah,
and what it meant to them to have both boys there, and how everyone talks about the Super Bowl and how one kid's got to lose. And it's like, okay, but also one kid wins, but let's also ride the season. Both teams were successful all season long and
yeah,
through the playoffs. So, as they explained it, their mom was just living the high life. And she wears a jersey that's got one of them on the front and one of them on the back. That's a custom made jersey for that Super Bowl. Um, but they talked about her enjoyment, her passion, and getting to watch them and what it meant to them as a family. And it brings both of them to tears while they're talking. And that's one of those things to me where, like, I'm not a big fan of crying, but when it's a moment like that, when it's justified and genuine, it's like, not only is that cool that you're that tight of a family, that you love each other that much, but that also takes a pretty big man when it's your own podcast to keep that in and not cut it out.
you know, when you see the real emotion, I mean that's
Oh, it gets me
you know,
choked up.
oh yeah, yeah. Well, and we've joked about that. It's like, trust me, buddy, it doesn't get easier when you get older.
No, but I mean, they might as well have been talking about my own mom.
Yeah, and that to see that emotion and to feel that, you can just see the love not only between them but for their parents, and you know, and then and I think we already talked about this leading up to it, but again, two guys in the same family and they're playing. Number one, to make it to an NFL team, to play on an NFL, to make it to an
And
NFL
both are not
team.
playing their original positions, by the way.
Right. Right.
I don't know if you know that, but
I knew Travis wasn't.
Jason didn't get any D1 offers, any power school D1 offers. And he was a running back linebacker, and he went to Cincinnati and beefed up to be a fullback. And that's why he's so good at pole blocking. And eventually he got over 300 pounds when he was at Cincinnati, and they moved him to center, and he got drafted because of it. And Travis went there as a QB, and then they moved him to receiver, and then he got beefed up, and they moved him to tight end.
No,
And so, I
when
mean,
when you think
it
about
gets more
when you
astronomical.
do the math on that, it's just amazing. It is just amazing that two guys, brothers, would be playing in the Super Bowl. And it's, I don't know, when I saw that, clip from their podcast, that emotion's real and you can just tell it. And it just, it's a heartwarming thing. I mean, you can tell that they love each other. You can tell that they love their parents, and what an incredible thing. And you're right. Both sides can't win, but
Right.
they even did that with class. You know,
Well, they
they
said it's the best year they've ever had, and they weren't even talking about their records. It was just because, the moments their family got to have because of the records, but also they started their podcast together. And since they had left Cincinnati, I believe Travis is like 2 years behind Jason, I think. But since they left Cincinnati, they didn't really get to talk that much during the football season. And now that they have the podcast and they're talking every week, and you can tell that they're not just brothers, they're genuine friends. They've just really, I guess, shared what they consider is the best year they've had. So,
and a step further, not only are they great athletes on great teams, if Jason Kelsey isn't the best center in football, he's one of the top two. And if Travis Kelsey isn't the best tight end in football, he's in the top two. That's my opinion. And I think a lot of people would echo that, is that they're both at the top of their craft. And no, it was a cool thing to watch. It was just a neat experience. I'm sure, I can't even imagine going through that personally. That would be incredible.
what
And
a
and
roller coaster.
and they were just, it was just, I just thought that whole thing was really, really classy. I know that I think we started last week with uh above or below 50.
Yes.
And so this week, um I want your opinion, above or below 50. Aaron Rodgers will play for the Green Bay Packers in 2023. What's the percentage and why?
Um, 49% below 50.
Okay.
49% because I think he's tired of it, and I don't think he actually wants to be there. Um, but I don't know if he'll make enough stir to force himself away. However, it's very easy for him to stay in one spot, but there are some other teams. We've talked about like the Dallas Cowboys always seem to come up with the money, and they were pretty loaded and pretty disappointed in their season. And although Jerry Jones says Dak is his guy, we know that he could change that with the flip of a coin. So there's potential there. We know that he's a California guy, and the 49ers, in my opinion, were a quarterback away from the Super Bowl. So that would be easy to put him in there. But the reason I put it at 49%, I don't think he wants to be there. I think they're tired of his shit. But as you had mentioned earlier before we started talking on the podcast, his salary cap is so large that it really does keep it like a coin toss right now because only so many teams could absorb it. So I just got to say 49%. I think he wants out, but I don't know that anybody can pay him.
I'm with you. I'd say 60. And for many of those reasons you just said, is that he's got roughly $50 million coming next year. I don't, I'm not saying that number's right, but I think it's in the neighborhood. So there's 50 million reasons to come back. I think he acts like a guy who, I don't know if he's, I don't want to say disinterested, but is he as interested as he once was? He doesn't act that way to me, but his net worth is estimated at $200 million. He's 38 or 39 years old. I don't think anybody else can pay him, but I think, for 50 million, I'd play, wouldn't you? And I think that because of those things you said, I think there are other, like, he'd make the Jets better. And the Jets, I think, are a pretty good young team. I don't know if he makes them Super Bowl good, but the Jets would be better with him. I don't know if they can handle that kind of money. The Raiders he'd be perfect there to make them better. I don't know if he makes them a Super Bowl team, but like you said, with that kind of a cap hit, I just don't know how many teams can do that.
I
Now,
don't know if I'd want to go to Oakland.
Vegas.
I'd like, or yeah, sorry, Vegas. That's right. That which is just
I
terrible to
know,
think
I
of.
know, I know.
But I really don't know if it's a culture thing or what's going on. But I do think Carr is a good quarterback, and I think he could be very good in the right place. What would worry me if I were Aaron Rodgers, regardless of how good you think you are, and we both agree that he's a very talented quarterback. Do they ruin people there? It seems like they can't get a successful QB forever. The last one I remember is like Gannon, but it really does seem like they can't have a successful QB, and you're gonna end your legacy there.
Well, I mean, other guys have done it or tried it, and you're right. I mean, Carson Palmer went there from Cincinnati, and I think he did okay, but he had better years in Arizona afterwards. And Carson Palmer was the number one overall pick, so you got a good point. I mean, and again, they've got Devontae Adams, they've got Max Crosby, they have other good players. I don't know that they're a Super Bowl. I don't know that they're Aaron Rodgers away from a Super Bowl. And I don't know if they can, make the money work either. That's the biggest problem. And when you bring up
If the
Carr,
Niners could make it work,
yes,
that would be
yes,
so
and that
strong.
and that and that and you're right. That makes sense. But I don't, I
But
don't know
they've
if they
got,
can
I
make
mean,
the
they've
money
got
work.
Warner on defense, they've got McCaffrey on offense, they've got um, their receivers. I can't even think
Good
of their names, but they're
receivers, man.
loaded. They've got
Yeah,
Kittle. I mean, I
yeah.
doubt they have the cap room.
Debo Samuel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
By
yeah.
the way,
They
Rodgers, if he plays in 2023, is guaranteed 59.465
Oh,
million.
so it's 60. Yeah, I don't, and I just don't know that, you know, Al and I were talking about this earlier. You read these reports and it said, well, people from an unidentified source in Green Bay, an unidentified team source said, you know, they're getting kind of tired of Aaron Rodgers stuff, you know. And I said to Alan, I go, well, was that the cafeteria lady
Right.
at Lambeau Field? And
Yeah.
no
Trash picker going, I'm
disrespect,
tired of Aaron
the
Rodgers.
groundskeeper that
Yeah.
said, no disrespect, but you know what I mean, especially when it's an unnamed source. So, but I used to think he was like aloof, and I kind of liked him,
No,
but
I think he just got shit on too much.
well, it could be, but I'm just kind of getting tired of him.
I
I, I
think
I
everybody
think he's
is.
great,
I think
but
his shtick has worn out, and I was thinking about this. Well, since we've been talking about it, and it seems like he doesn't want to be in Green Bay, but at the same time, I look at him and how he's acted throughout his career, and me believing he doesn't want to be there might just be me getting tired of his attitude because, he's told the story before where he was at Cal and his teachers, were talking about what he was majoring in and what he wanted to do with his life. And he said, I'm going pro. And they kind of laughed at him. And so he
Yeah,
was already, underrated at his own school where he was doing good things. But then when he gets drafted, the whole Favre thing that,
that
I,
was weird.
he got the worst end of that for sure. I'm
He
not
did.
saying, you know, none of it was deserved. I don't know what happened, but he definitely got the shit end of the stick. And then by the time he came around, he'd been dogged by the media and undervalued by people so long. And he lights it up and becomes, multiple MVP award winner. And he almost gets to that point where it's like, you know what, fuck you. And that's the chip on his shoulder to stay great. But I think
Yeah.
we're all just tired of seeing it. Just like
You, go
people,
ahead.
there are people who like Tom Brady. We're tired of fucking seeing him win, man. Like let's get somebody else up there. And I think that's although his nonchalant, I don't give a shit attitude might just be the chip on his shoulder that because people didn't give him the time of day, he's always going to be like that, not give anyone else time of day. Although that may be the case, I think we're just tired of hearing it.
Well, I think if you look this up, I think I got my facts correct, and I'll try to check it as I go here. But um, I, I want to say he didn't have D1 offers. He went to Butte Junior College before he went to Cal. Now, I do know this about Cal. They got pretty high academic standards. They don't let idiots in there. So obviously he's a sharp guy. But he played at, I think it was Butte Junior College before he went to Cal. Well, then he's, going to be a first round draft pick. And at the time, it was Alex Smith and him. Which
Right.
one's going to be number one? San Francisco ended up taking, and it would have been, he'd have been in San Francisco. They ended up taking Alex Smith. They bring like now I think they bring all the potential first round guys to the NFL draft because it's gotten so big. But at that time, they would only take they'd have like 10 guys they put in the green room that they knew were going to be somewhere in the first round. Aaron Rodgers was the last one in there, undrafted, and I want to say they took him with like the 24th pick. They, Green Bay did. And like you said, then he's got to deal with this Favre thing. And again, I don't know this. I think Brett Favre would be a great guy to kick back and have a beer with. And obviously he had a great career. But you
With that
know,
welfare money, man.
yeah,
Buy you
yeah,
a beer with that
that's a
good old Mississippi
that's
welfare money.
yeah, yeah, and the dude's worth $150 million or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, who
I
knows
don't
what's true?
even,
It's
yeah.
all alleged.
Right. But, everything you saw about that was that it was a pretty prickly relationship. And that's why Favre ended up going to the Jets is that Green Bay was kind of in the same situation they are with Jordan Love now with Aaron Rodgers.
But if Aaron
Rodgers,
Rodgers was half as good at practice as what he is on the field for the past decade, a good old boy like Favre, that has to be annoying.
well,
That the
yeah.
young hotshot is that good.
But, you got this guy who sits and can't play because what are you going to bench Brett Favre? And I mean, I think he did okay in New York. He had a hell of a year in Minnesota. Now his last year sucked, but I mean, Favre had a year in Minnesota that he was damn good.
But well, and I mean, at the time, it was an evolving league. The quarterbacks were becoming more mobile, and it's like, again, you don't know on the field, but if practice looks like games, you got a guy who can throw it just as far. He's more mobile and he throws less picks.
Yeah,
I
he's
mean, that's
definitely not the gunslinger that Favre
no,
was.
and I
But
mean risk reward, but
They've got the
It's
same thing
still
with Jordan Love. They traded up to get him. And I want to say, is in his fourth year of his rookie deal. Well, he's going to have a fifth year option coming up. And so Green Bay's in a pickle too. They not only got
right.
to spend $60 million to keep him, which probably keeps you from getting rid of him, that 60 million, but we got a rookie that we drafted in the first round that we traded up to get, and we don't even know if he can play. So it's like they're in a really bad spot. I think I say 60 on the above or below 50 only because I think he'll play because of the 60 million. And I think because of that, they won't be able to get rid of him. They won't. No, I don't know
Well,
how many
he's got to
teams
be
are
hard to
capable.
deal with because your directive is going to come from the owner.
Right.
But,
Well, and Green Bay is
not
community
just,
owned.
well, and not just, you know, that aspect. He's obviously got a million things going on, and maybe that's why it seems like his attitude's sour. But the reason I think he would be particularly hard is because, or to deal with this, is because your your negotiations or any form of kind of like bullying him into what you want is not going to happen because he's gaining experience because he's a minority owner of the Bucks and he owns the Chicago Bears. And so I don't think there's any type of like hot shot leverage that an owner is going to push over him. One, he's got enough money to walk away, but two, I think he's starting to learn the ins and outs, or has already learned probably the ins and outs of the professional side of the business, even at the highest level. So I got to imagine negotiating with this guy is a pain in the ass.
Did you see him when he was the guest host on Jeopardy?
No, I did not.
He was really good. I mean, he was, and I don't watch that show, but when he did it, I watched it. He was really good. And it's like, I heard, again, do you believe it? I don't know, that he really wanted that gig. But I thought he was really good. He is a sharp guy. There's no question about it. But it's there's a conundrum there, and the only reason I'm above 50 and I'm at 60 is because I think he's very limited on who else could take over that financial responsibility, who has the flexibility to be able to do that. Now, you said the Cowboys can do some crazy stuff, and Jerry Jones has got the balls to do it. And I know he just gave Dak a ton of money, and said he's my guy and all that. But McCarthy's there, and McCarthy's going to call plays next year. And I really do think that Aaron Rodgers misses Mike McCarthy. I think they got tired of each other, but I think he misses him. So you say that, and it seems impossible financially, but it wouldn't stun me because Jerry does things like that, and whether you love him or hate him, that guy's a mover and a shaker, and he gets stuff done.
CBS
So,
Sports has an article out right now of landing rumors for him and the top 9 teams that could afford Aaron Rodgers.
uh-huh.
Number 1 is the Jets. Number 2, the Raiders. Number 3, the Titans. Number 4, the Patriots. Number 5, the Commanders. Number 6, the Dolphins. Number 7, the Buccaneers. Number 8, the 49ers. And number 9, the Seahawks.
Wow. I did not know that.
That's their article. They say they could
Yeah,
afford it, but how in depth do
right.
we have to trade people away to afford it?
Well, and what you hear, and again, I've never run a professional sports franchise, but what you hear is that whatever it costs, if you win a Super Bowl, it was worth it. Because that Super Bowl, there's only a couple teams that have never been. The Lions are one of them, but there's a lot of teams that haven't won one, even having been. So, when you have to make this what seems like the Rams did it. They gave up a boatload to get Matt Stafford and signed him to a contract extension. They won the Super Bowl. It was worth if he doesn't do another thing there, it was worth it to the franchise because they won a Super Bowl. And when you list those teams, like you said, there's some pretty. I don't know if the Jets are Super Bowl contenders with him, but they're a lot better and they're a good young team. Same with the Raiders. I don't think they're as good as the Jets, but he makes them a lot better. The Niners, that's serious.
And
That
that's what I would wonder is it's like, are we
yeah,
gonna, make
that's
a deal with the
serious.
devil because we're this loaded and it might do we crash the next decade to make sure we get one Super Bowl?
Well, and Al and I were talking about that earlier today. This is turning into a 4 and 5 year cycle because you invest in a quarterback. If he's good, you got to pay him. I mean, but a rookie deal is extremely important. Like the Rams went to the Super Bowl with Jared Goff on a rookie deal. That was huge. Mahomes may have his first one. He may have still been on his rookie deal. That's huge because that money, it's not, now everybody says about Derek Carr. Yeah, Derek Carr. The Lions are watching closely what happens with Derek Carr. Not that they want him, but Derek Carr is going to get paid. Well, guess what? I think Jared Goff is every bit as good as Derek Carr, and I actually think he's better. Well, Jared Goff's going to have a contract coming up in the next year or two, so Derek Carr is going to set a pretty mean market price because somebody's going to pay that guy, and I think he's good. I do.
He's got a cannon, man.
I do.
He
And
really does.
his brother was really good, but his brother went to Houston, and they were an expansion team, and he just got the shit kicked out of him. I mean
And I liked his
that guy
brother,
got
but I
beat
just
to
think
death.
he's so much better.
Well, he
But he's
certainly has
been
had a better career. Yes.
but he's had a better career, but let's think of where he landed though. I mean, like I'm not saying they've been good, but they were a shithole when he got there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I mean, that's like saying, oh, people don't. And I'm not trying to compare the two directly, although I am. I don't think skill wise they're the same, but that's like when people go, I don't know that Stafford's that good. It's like, dude, he fucking played on the Lions. Like, come on. And this is a Detroit Lions fan, but he played on the Lions, and guess what? First year out, Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so I mean, and that's I'm not saying they're of the same skill level, but I think you
No,
can put them
I
in
know what you
relative
mean.
categories where if he was on a better team, I think he would have done even more.
If what you said, that you quoted that article, and if we're taking that as truth, because I don't know any better of those teams that could afford Aaron Rodgers, that's huge. I think Derek Carr would make the Jets better. But the thing about New York, and I've been there, but I've never been a fan. And everybody says whether it's baseball, basketball, football, hockey, the media eats you alive. I don't know. I really do believe that part of Zach Wilson's failure with the Jets is because of that. You got a kid who went to Brigham Young.
I just don't think he ever belonged in the NFL.
Maybe you could be right. All I'm saying is
He reminds me of
all of that,
Manziel a lot. Not as shitty, but just
all that media scrutiny.
attributes.
I don't think it helps you there,
I'd
and
like
you're
to
going to
see
get a
Derek
lot of it.
Carr in Seattle. I
Yeah,
think
Geno
Pete
Smith's a
Carroll.
free agent too.
Well, I think Pete Carroll and Metcalf mesh real well with Carr's personality, and you start getting a little swag in that locker room, and that team could be dangerous.
You could be right. You could be right. But
But
that's
we'll see.
yeah, yeah. And there's a lot to, it's just starting. Guys are just becoming free agents. I don't know when that day is, but
And for
it's
everybody who
just
hates our
starting.
football segments, we're not going to have much to talk about in the future
That's
episodes.
true. And that's a great segue into you had Valentine's Day on the list.
Yeah,
You
did you and mom do anything for Valentine's Day? Or
the
just chill at the house?
we get we're old, so we didn't do
True.
anything dramatic other than the day after Valentine's Day, $3,700 worth of furniture was delivered. So that was our
Oh yeah,
Valentine's
that's
Day
right.
present. Yeah.
So you got a new lazy boy or a recliner,
Yep. Giant,
and she
giant.
got a new
And
love seat. Now, is your recliner a chair and a half? Because it looked pretty wide.
it isn't technically that, but it's a big chair. And
Oh, it looked
and it's
comfy.
it is, and it's got, the three-way thing where you tip your head up and back. The love seat, which they're both the same brand. Um of I can't even think of it now. What they're called doesn't matter. But they both have you can adjust the head and neck part too. That's that's amazing, bud. That but that chair is big. Your boys are gonna love that chair. They
Hey, you
set my
guys are
old.
due for some new stuff.
Oh yeah, well, it had been seven 7 years, 7 or 8 years, and it was time. But yeah, that was our Valentine's Day. How about you? What'd you guys do?
So we dropped the kids off at the in-laws. We text them and said, "Hey, they're sick with the sniffles and all this stuff. Are you sure you want them?" They said yes, and so we wanted to do something. We had plans to go out for dinner and all that, but we didn't feel right, putting silverware and stuff in our mouth and handing it to other people, busboy or whatever, and getting them sick. So we chose not to go to dinner, and instead, um, I just had, I don't even know how much, but I had like a lot of cash in my money clip in my wallet. And I was like, with whatever's here, we can do whatever you want to do, whatever shopping spree you want to do. Let's just have fun. And as I'm sure you know, for me, I don't have to do anything extravagant to have fun. I get the most joy out of watching Melissa have fun.
Yep.
And so in this case, we ended up going to Partridge Creek, which is, I guess you can call it an outdoor mall.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so, so I mean, obviously, all the stores are inside, but like the corridors you walk down, you're outside. Um, and so we went there, and we went to we visited some of the stores that were real popular, like Hollister and American Eagle when I was in school.
Hmm.
And when Melissa was in school. And so we went there just to like memory lane and all that. And we're messing around with ideas of things and joking about like stopping and getting a piercing or something silly. But we ended up going to Victoria's Secret. And luckily I ended up having enough cash on me, but she, picked out her 5 pair of underwear or whatever it is for the deal that they had. And then there was a nice pajama set that was not boy shorts, a little bit longer than boy shorts, like jammy shorts with a
Hmm.
pullover polo. That was
Nice.
super soft, and so she got that. And really, that's all we did was go shopping, and then we came home, and I think we watched a movie together. But other than that, that was all we did. But just reinventing the conversation of dating life, you know,
Yeah.
being able to experience the joy of one another without kids, just walking around. I'm not a big fan of Valentine's Day. I think it's a made up holiday and all that BS, but just being able to walk around like we were dating, laugh, giggle, have a conversation, and be able to do whatever we want without having somebody crying or somebody asking a question or
No, I get that.
and it kind of rejuvenated the relationship a little bit. Not that we were in a bad spot, but it
No,
gave
I
you
get it.
that nice feeling you hadn't had in a while, and that was the best Valentine's Day I think I've ever had.
When your mom and I, before COVID hit, we were doing date night. Like once a week, we'd do date night.
Yep.
And a lot of times, we would go to a restaurant that we went to when we were dating. Like and we'll be married 40 years in
Yep.
June. And we would go to one of those old places, and a lot of them are gone or there's something else now. But a lot of them were still around and we were doing that. But when you say that, that's how we were about the furniture. I mean, we go in there, we look, and and your mom, I think she told you this, but she's looking for a love seat. She naturally finds this one that she absolutely loves. It was literally twice as much as the other love seats. That's no
Why
joke.
not?
And she didn't know that.
Right.
And I know she was looking at backups. And I just said, "Why? You want that one? Let's get it." And then I had looked at recliners and I had actually picked out a couple of recliners that I was happy with. And then she goes, "Well, they have this. They have a recliner in the same brand." And I go, "Well, where's that at?" Because it wasn't right with the sofa and the love seat. And the salesman showed me, and I sat in it for about 10 seconds. I go, "I want that one."
Yeah.
And but that feeling that you have, like, because like you said, we needed it. We needed new furniture. Ours was beat down pretty good. And as we're sitting in that, the first day we get it, she's looking at me and she's smiling. She goes, "Do you like it?" I go, "Man, I like it." I said, "Do you like it?" She goes, "I love it." And it's like the fact that she loved it, that's what I was enjoying more. The fact that I loved it was what she was enjoying more.
And there's something else too that comes along with it. There's, and I know I'm generalizing here, but there's kind of two types of guys, and some are problem solvers and others are problem makers, right? And problem solvers love investment, and
Yeah.
so it's like if I buy you flowers, you smile for a day, they wither in a week. But if we go out and we talk and have a conversation, it makes us both feel better about even just the day, each other, whatever.
Yeah.
But I buy you a love seat that you're going to use every day. There's
Yeah.
something that's even more satisfying about that.
Yeah.
And that's
Well,
like it scratches that itch of like being a problem solver. So, obviously you did furniture, but even for me, it's like, look, man, we all got to wear underwear. So so when she needed underwear, and it's like, I'd be happy to buy you some. Like, you're
that's
gonna
awesome.
use it,
No,
Like,
that's
let's.
awesome. And again, there's a certain level of functionality that you and I both have, and I think Joe and Jacob have it too, but you and I definitely have that. Okay, so you did something really nice that served a purpose. She
Right.
needed it. We needed new furniture. Letting her get what she wanted, that was the nice part. That was
Yeah.
the nice part because we needed furniture, but at the same time, there's this level of functionality in what you're doing that's always back there. You
You and I
know,
have talked about it when we buy each other gifts. It's like, you ask me, what do I want? It's like, I don't know, but you get me something I need. And I try and do the same thing for you
yeah,
because it's
you
like,
do.
if I want it, I already fucking bought it, man.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it, but there might be something I'm missing that I need, and you go, "Hey, man, I noticed you had a hole in your work gloves. Here's some gloves."
yeah.
And it's like it's just satisfying.
It
Like,
is. It is. It's crazy, and I whether I don't know if it's a simple mind or basic needs or whatever it is, but the fact that you can be happy over stuff like that, over in large part it's simple, but over stuff like that, I joke about our wedding. Your mom, her birthday is one day, our wedding day, our anniversary is the next. She picked the date, not me. But at the same time, I get a twofer.
yeah,
you know,
I mean,
I
mine are only 6 days apart for with Melissa.
yeah, I get a twofer. So there's a level of functionality in there, and but again, when you're And everybody's done that. Everybody's done that at Christmas. The joy, especially as you get older, the joy that you get from watching the kids now, your kids, Jacob's and Joe's kids, open their gifts. That's the joy. That's the joy of Christmas, is
Well,
seeing
it's
them
funny
be
you brought that
happy.
up because I already thought of something as we were getting ready to start the podcast today. And I don't know why I was thinking about it, but I was like, I think I know the next gift I'm going to get my dad. I'm going to get him like a miniature helper kit for JJ. So he's got safety glasses, helmet, whatever he needs.
Perfect.
But it's like,
Perfect.
I know that's not technically for you, but I also know you giving that to him and him getting to work with you is like a better gift than me buying you something.
I bought him work gloves, leather ones.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
they're still too big, but
everything
that
is
was
at his
that
age.
was the idea. Was I, because I always wear mechanics gloves or whatever when I'm out doing something, and and I don't want him to mark up his hands, but yeah, I bought him a pair of little leather work gloves, and he'll grow into them. He's getting a lot closer, but yeah, those kind of
Oh,
things are
speaking of JJ
those are
though,
fun.
that kid for like 6 months now has been saying it's Valentine's Day or it's almost Valentine's Day. And I was so excited to be done with it because it's like, all right, it's gone. Won't be here till next year. And now every day it's not Valentine's Day. Gotta wait. And it's like, oh my goodness, man. Let it go. Find something new. And JJ started playing the opposite game with me. So it's like every time I say yes, he says no. And we were like playing around, making funny faces. Well, Jameson, who can only say about 5 words, now all he does is no, no. Just walks around the house saying no all
No.
day. And he'll even nod yes and say no. It's just, no.
He's already got a cool wave off too as he walks away. He's got
Yeah.
a little bit of a hand movement.
Leave
It's
it
like,
hanging.
yeah, yeah. It's like, get out of here.
It's like,
He's already
I
got
sank
that.
that shot. Uh,
But no, that's the cool part of it. And like I said, as you get older, it just, yeah, I don't know, it seems to intensify. And but yeah, so no big celebration, no special dinner. I
I
want to
mean,
say
new
I got her a
furniture is pretty
pizza.
big spending for you guys. That's a big deal.
Yeah, yeah, but and that was only part of it. We held off on the couch because of Max. Max still gets on the couch a lot. Now, when Max isn't around, then we'll get the couch.
Right.
But yeah, we held off on that. But yeah, dude, I was stunned. Because it had been 8 years, 7 or 8 years since we bought furniture. I was shocked at how much it was. I was just like, oh my God. And we're not buying Ethan Allen stuff. It's like we went to Value
Oh,
City Furniture
it's
because it's
crazy out
close
there.
by.
I
Oh, it
told you
is.
I did the same thing with kitchen tables.
Oh,
It's like Melissa's kitchen table, our kitchen table was just furniture that stayed from the previous owner.
okay.
And she's had this place for like, I don't know, a decade. And it's a little cheap table. It's starting to fall apart. It's not just outdated. It's starting to fall apart. And so every now and then we go out and look at new tables, and it's like, my God, I could
I,
finance a car for
I
this.
know that's I know. Well,
What are we talking about?
it's like anything else. You can spend as much as you want, but I was shocked at how much you have to spend. I really
Yeah,
was.
well, and then you start going, okay, well, can I get by because we're looking at houses. I don't want to buy something that matches this house and doesn't work in our next
That's
house.
fair, and that's smart. That's smart. Yeah. Because that's a big deal. We had, you remember I bought this antique Duncan Fife dining room table with 8 chairs. It was beautiful. I bought it at an estate auction.
Was that the
Well,
one that was in our old dining room at the piano? That
yes.
was my favorite table.
And again, we build this new house. It doesn't fit.
Not
It doesn't.
anywhere. No,
So it was in the
no.
basement. It was in the basement forever. And then when the fire happened, we just junked it. But yeah, and that was a beautiful table. And it
It
was,
really was.
but in the new house, it didn't fit. So yeah, that's good planning to think about that. I mean, you're never going to be perfect about it, but that's pretty darn good planning to,
No, and
you know.
it's different. Like it's different to me though. Like with okay, like if I got a chair, I can get a neutral color chair and match my new furniture around it when I get in the house if I desperately need a chair today. But if I get a kitchen table, I don't know if my dining room's going to be carpet or hardwood. I don't know what color my cabinets are going to be. So I could totally like what happens if the house you buy, maybe you plan on painting them, staining them, whatever, but maybe they're a light brown cabinet and you have like a chocolate
Yep.
table.
Yep.
So that for me, it's things like that. And I
Oh
know
yeah.
we're probably going too far down furniture lane, but things like that have a lot less um I don't need flexibility, agility, whatever you want to
Oh
call
yeah.
it, with
Yeah.
how they work
Yeah.
with the house as to where Melissa's got a great big couch, you know, and we can pay to have it cleaned and pay to have it restuffed and all this stuff. And I'm good with that because it's light gray. It's gonna go with almost anything.
Yep. Yeah. Earth tones, man.
Yeah.
Be safe with earth tones. But you're right, you know, all those things come into play. Like you said, we've been on the furniture movement for a while here, but that was part of the Valentine's Day thing at our house. You know, we talked about Lone Survivor a little bit, and I don't want to, we're, you know, pushing up on time here, but you had watched that movie and I hadn't, and I did watch it. And it was, I was very well enthralled with that movie. I liked all of the, I don't even know what they call it, but when the camera bounces around, like it
Yeah.
looks
The
like
camera shake.
live. Yeah. That, and that was very effective in that show. You and I were talking before we came on air, and it's like, it's based on a true story, and I know that. Well, if the military actions in that movie, the decisions of that basically put those guys in, they knew it was going to be a dangerous mission, and then it ended up being even more dangerous without the appropriate backup and evacuation availabilities or abilities. If any part of that's true, and I don't know that it is, that's just really unfortunate because those guys were going in a bad spot anyway. And then they find out they underestimated the force they're going against, and they find out their evac people are, you know, off doing something else and aren't available. So really, I thought it was a captivating movie. And Mark Wahlberg is one of those guys who I always say, Mark Wahlberg. But you know what? I tend to like his movies.
You
So
kind of get lost in his role. I mean,
yeah,
you
I
almost
tend to like
forget that
him.
it's Marky Mark.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't even, yeah, that part of it I don't even think about. But you know, he
But he
is
was like
he.
that. I think it was Four Brothers that he was in. He's been
Yeah.
in a lot of movies
Oh,
where
dude.
you when I think of Mark Wahlberg, I think of like the movie Ted.
Yeah.
And that's kind of fits his personality. And when I watch something like Lone Survivor, I totally forget that that guy who is in Ted is playing this, which I think is, you know, kind of the mark of a great actor,
Oh,
you
it
know.
is for sure.
So at least a chameleon actor. I mean, there are certain people like a Denzel or a Anthony Hopkins where you want them to be themselves in the movie, but then there are other actors who are just much better at, instead of being who we all thought Denzel or whatever the case is, whoever that person should be, they're more of a chameleon to where the role is just played that well.
You know, like and your mom and I have talked about this. The guy on, I don't even know his name. He's on Two and a Half Men. He's the, you know, anal brother.
Yeah.
I can't even think of his name. Doesn't
I can't
matter.
either, but
He's
I know who you're
always
talking
that
about.
guy. John Cryer. He's always that. He's always Alan Harper. In
Right.
whatever he's in, I can't get over it. And what you just said about Wahlberg is true. I don't think about him being Ted. And although I thought that movie was
He's
funny.
but that brother, if anyone out there doesn't watch Two and a Half Men, one show that I feel like is popular enough for everyone to know, it's George Costanza.
Yes.
It's the guy you love
The
to hate.
guy you just
And no matter what role he plays, he'll always be Costanza.
and
Can't stand you.
yep. And they're typecast forever, but Mark Wahlberg clearly isn't. And I mean, I've seen a lot of his movies, and I like most of them that I've seen. Uh, Real quick, I want to make this suggestion to you and everybody else. Have you seen Denzel in Inside Man?
Yes,
I just watched that again the other day, and that to me that's a great movie. But I did not know that was a Spike Lee movie. And I like a lot of Spike Lee movies, and I didn't know that Inside Man was a Spike Lee joint. I didn't know that.
I
And
would have no idea.
n- I mean, but you know Spike Lee, right? I mean,
Yeah, I know who he is, but I wouldn't know any of his movies.
oh,
And I
she's
don't
got
mean that I don't mean
yeah.
that I haven't seen them. I just mean that
He's made a
I
lot of
wouldn't
edgy
know.
movies. Crooklyn, Do the Right Thing was one of my all-time favorites. She's Got to Have It. Jungle Fever. I mean, and those movies are edgy movies, but I had no idea Inside Man was a Spike Lee movie. And when I saw it was on the other day, and I told your mom, I go, we should watch that because I haven't seen it in a while.
It's so
And then,
good.
yeah, and then I saw that, and I like that big British guy, that Clive Owen, who was the crook. He always plays a good part too. And he was one of those guys, he's a crook, but you kind of like him, you know? He's the
Yeah,
bank
and that one's
robber.
like really what he does. I don't want to give it away in case anyone hasn't seen it, even though it's old. But what he does in that movie is like very well thought out, and I find that
Oh,
fascinating.
legendary, dude. You planned that robbery. That would be
Yeah,
you. That would be you. That was, yeah. I mean, that was ingenious. And no, and we hadn't, set out to talk about that. But when I saw that the other day, and then I see it's a Spike Lee film. Well, I should have known that because man, I like a lot of Spike Lee movies, and it was really good. And your mom and I were just, we were totally engaged in that movie when it came on the other day. I'm going to watch the one that you recommended, the ambulance. We're going to
yeah.
watch that
So for
between now and then.
those out there who need complete realism when it comes to firearms, this movie will drive you nuts. It will. It did me, and it was a very good movie, and I still like the movie. But for example, there's a guy shooting an AR, and it's got what looks like a California compliance under 15 round magazine, probably a 10 round mag. It has no banana curve to it at all. So it looks like a 10 round mag, and he does not reload for the whole movie. And I'm just,
Well, we
that
talked about
really
that.
itched in my crawl. I it bothered me to my core to the point where I was going, what the, or like when an ambulance comes and you're like, they wouldn't respond this way. If you do that, you probably won't enjoy the movie. But as far as the acting, the premise, the moral dilemmas in the movie, and the overall action, it is very well paced, and it is a good movie. And Jake Gyllenhaal's in it, and he's a very good actor, and he actually I would say plays a borderline psychopath because he's the son of a psychopath, but he has some um, empathy.
Okay. Well, we talked about this, about when something's in your wheelhouse and firearms would be in yours.
Yeah.
Um, and it's real hard to overlook that when you're I don't want to say expert when it's in
You're
your
hyper
wheelhouse.
aware.
when you
Yeah.
know, yeah, you're very knowledgeable about it. It's like you see movies all the time, and I have too over the years about mining. Not about mining. There'll be a scene where it's at a mining site in a quarry, and I'll be looking. And it's like, no,
Right. Yes,
that
exactly.
doesn't belong there.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't
You're like,
belong
what?
there. No.
There's a dredge sitting in the middle of
Yeah,
land. And you're
yeah,
like,
no.
what?
It doesn't. No,
So
no.
we talked about Inside Man and how you said like that would be the type of meticulous planning I would do if I robbed the
Yeah,
bank. So
yeah.
I've got to tell you about one small part of a scene that's in this ambulance movie, just so that you recognize it when you come across it.
Okay.
And this is along the lines of that. And I literally slapped my forehead. Like, what the fuck? So I mean, I love puzzles. I love
Sure.
thrillers and stuff. I play video games where it's like whether I'm good guy, bad guy, or committing crimes, whatever the case is, there's meticulous planning across the board to where
Right.
if it happened in real life, you might actually get away with it. And so there, like I love stuff like that. And there's this point where they are going to um hijack one of the ambulances and they're in a parking garage and the male driver steps out and they knock him out and leave him in the parking garage. And I mean, I out loud said, "What the fuck?" and smacked my head. And Melissa's like, "What?" And I go, "They'd have never known you took it if you just pulled him inside the ambulance with you. But you left him on the floor. When they come around, they're going to see this guy and know what vehicle you're in." Well, I'll be damned if it wasn't 5 minutes later. And
Right.
it's like, God.
No,
And
when you
that type of stuff just, oh, it was
yeah.
eating at me. But I do want to say that I was in one of those particular picky moods. So it is a very good movie. I was being very nitpicky of it.
Well, when and again, along those same lines, and this is a movie that doesn't there's not going to be any spoiler alert, but it's a fantastic movie. It's called The Great Escape. I don't even know when it was made, years ago. It's a World War II movie.
That's
Steve
Paul
Mc-
Newman, right?
Steve McQueen.
Steve McQueen.
Steve
What am
McQueen.
I
Yeah,
thinking?
and there's James Garner. I mean, it's got an all-star cast. There's a lot of really good actors in that movie. Lots of very good actors. And it's a classic movie. I mean, it's a great movie. But Steve McQueen, and he's like the stud muffin of the day, right? And I don't know when that movie was made. I want to say somewhere 1960 or ish. But anyway, Steve McQueen steals a German motorcycle. Okay, now this is like a street bike.
Old fucking panhead with no suspension.
It's a street bike. And it doesn't have the sidecar and it doesn't have the fairing. He steals just a single motorcycle. But again, and it's a military motorcycle. Well, then there's this scene where they're chasing him and he's going cross country and he jumps this 6-foot fence with that bike. And it's like, there's
Oh
no
boy.
freaking way, dude. I mean, and again, to a motorcyclist, which you are, which I am, I can see because they showed that scene from a distance. Number one, when he's about to do it, I'm going, he's never going to do it on that.
Right.
But you
Yeah.
can see they change bikes. It's like an
Yeah. A
MX.
dirt bike.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a dirt bike. And a guy does jump the fence. I mean, that really happened. But it's like, and so those are the kind of things that I'll get hung up in when it's like you're showing me something that it doesn't fit, man. It doesn't work like that, just like
It's
you did
funny
with the
you brought that
guns.
up about the motorcycle because I remember the opposite happening and it made me so satisfied in a movie where they got it right. And it
Yeah.
was in one of the X-Men movies or something. And Wolverine goes to sit on like this old panhead, like with
Yep.
the separated seat. It's not part of the frame, it's raised above, that type of
Yep.
suspension. And
Yep.
he's got his ability, the adamantium frame or whatever inside of him. and he's so heavy that when he sits on it, he collapses the whole suspension. And I'm like, thank you. Like that bike would never
Exactly.
support him.
Exactly.
And
Well,
obviously, it's based off of fiction, but if you assumed his weight, it never would work.
well, you know, Arnold in Terminator, Judgment Day, the second one, when he's on that fat boy,
Yeah.
he does shit that fat boy would not do.
I mean, I want to know how much custom work was done for him to fit on a Fat Boy.
Well,
Because I got on one like 2 years ago,
yeah,
and I have never, and I love Fat Boys. They're my
I do.
favorite
I
looking
do too.
bike.
They're beautiful bikes.
But I have never sat on a motorcycle more designed to fit a woman than that.
Really,
Yeah, even like the 750 Honda Magna.
no
Nope.
kidding.
Yeah, the Fat Boy is. You're talking, and you know how much 1 or 2 inches and change will do for you.
Oh, it's
You're
huge.
talking bring the bars back 3 inches, drop the seat 1.5 to 2, and put lower controls 3 inches out to make it comfortable.
Right.
And I mean, on a motorcycle, you feel like you gain 10 feet of room doing that. You'd need to do that just to ride it every day.
Well, again, we're, those things that hit whatever is in your wheelhouse. I don't let them drive me nuts, but I notice them.
For
I
sure.
notice them, and I can't, like, when it gets too ridiculous, I'll call bullshit. It's like, no. I mean, I'll say something out loud, and it's just me and your mom, and I go, there's no way. That doesn't, no.
Right.
No. But anyway, you know what I'm talking about, and that's what you were saying about the ambulance movie, but we
Yeah, we're
will.
rolling up on an hour and a half. You said you had an Allen story you wanted to share.
Just a quick one, and this is an old one, but a great one. We
Okay.
were this is when we were going to go backpacking on the high country pathway. And we lived in Ludington. You weren't even born yet. And Joe wasn't even born yet. It was just Jacob at that time. And so we were younger, we're in our 30s, and we were doing this high country pathway thing. And the first night, we drove up to where we had to be. And from Ludington, it was probably a couple hours. And we get a hotel because we're going to start everything the next day, and we're going to backpack 30 some miles over 3 days. So the first night we stay in a hotel. Well, we're like, going to go have drinks or whatever. And out in the middle of nowhere, there was this, I mean, it was a frickin' hard rockin' bar. I mean, it was like the building was vibrating as we drove up.
That's awesome.
He's got 2 kids. I've got one. We do not belong there. I mean, we're both in our 30s. I think probably the oldest person in that place might have been 25. If they were 25, that was all. And, we're in our 30s and married with kids. And it's just this hard drive. And so we're not going to hang there very long, but we go in for a drink. And, and there's waitresses walking around in tatted up and skimpy outfits and all that. And this girl walks by Alan and me, and we're standing at the bar. We can't even hear each other because the music's so loud. And she walks by him, and he looks at me, and like just under his breath, he goes, now again, keep in mind, this is pounding rock and roll in here. And he goes, that's a nice looking bitch. And that girl stopped and snapped her head around. He goes, did you just call me a bitch? And he has this childish, shocked look on his face like, Mr. Bill, oh no. He's like, no.
No.
So that was and then after she walked away, we both started cracking up.
Yeah.
But that was
man.
for years, if he's standing over a 3-foot or a 4-foot putt and he missed it, I'd go, did you just call me a bitch? Just
That's good stuff.
another classic. But
I
again,
mean, But
the
of course
line
he would say it, you know.
the line that line though lasts forever, and then you can even say no
No.
because
Yeah.
it's like he got all stone faced real quick and goes no,
Oh
and I mean I'm
man.
sitting there dying,
Did you
but
just
yeah
call me a bitch?
we and I don't even know how she heard him. I mean we were
She
sitting.
probably thought you guys were cute and was turning around looking at him and read his lips.
Oh well, I don't know.
That would be my guess.
I don't know. Well, dude, we didn't belong in that place. I tell you, we were
That might be why she thought you were cute.
we were we
She's
were too
already seen the tatted bikers. She
we
wants a
were
dad bod.
we were too old for that place, but it's one of those stories that'll just go on forever. You know, it's one
That's
it,
fantastic.
it'll just that line that did you just call me a bitch? I can't tell you how many times when he's like, or he'd like shank a drive, and it's like, did you just call me a bitch? And
I
it's
mean,
like,
there's another one, and I'll talk to you, you know, off air to see if the story's worth sharing. But you guys have a lot of those, and one of them is in shit, and it's like
ooh, yeah, that one's
but
serious.
having those inside jokes is just priceless. And you may need to talk to Alan before we talk about that story. I don't
Well,
know if that's fair game or not, but
well, it's fair game. There's nobody that's related to us or anything, or has been ever
I
related
just
to
don't
us.
know if he would want that shared. I don't. I, that
Oh,
that was all.
dude, he wouldn't care. And it's like we can leave out. We would obviously wouldn't include names, and we'll have to navigate through that story
Yeah,
carefully.
that's a pretty big one.
But
Rolling
yeah,
in it. But that's for next week. We gotta
all right,
save
man.
some of that. So you said you're gonna watch Ambulance. We could talk more about that next week.
Yep.
Another movie. When I said Paul Newman, I was actually thinking of a totally different movie. Cool Hand Luke.
Oh my God, that's
I
one of
feel
my
like that's a movie we
favorites.
should talk about.
Oh yeah, that's one
Um,
of yes, and
you're
that's
shaking it off, boss.
yeah, and
So
and the eggs, yeah. Oh,
yes,
that's fantastic. Yes, absolutely. And I
so
like
definitely
talking
one of
about
those.
movies. And you know what? For everybody out there, I'm not a you know movie critic. I'm not a I don't watch movies every day, but I love movies. And if we strike a nerve with somebody that either by chance maybe they haven't seen it, or what we relay sparks some interest that they want to see it, that's a good thing. They want to
Yeah,
see it again, that's a good thing. So yeah, that's and we'll yeah, we got to do that. We'll do the other that story you mentioned. Just don't forget it. Mark it down.
yeah.
We'll have to be careful navigating through that.
Yeah, have certain omissions, but we'll be good. Um, well, on that note, to anyone out there who's still listening, we appreciate you guys. We appreciate you stopping in week after week on whatever platform you're on. If there's a platform we're not on and you would like us to be on there because it's easier for you, please comment. Let us know if you have any questions, ideas, topics you'd like us to talk about, or any other comment, whether it be constructive criticism or just something you wanted to share with us. Please let us know. If you have a funny story that maybe potentially you wanted us to read, you are welcome to share those as well. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on YouTube or subscribe on YouTube, whatever it is on iTunes. I'm not sure. Downloads on Spotify, they're all very much appreciated, and we're hoping to continue to grow. We appreciate everything from all of our listeners and the comments that we've got, the feedback that we've got, and we hope that it continues. But on that note, be safe, be smart, make good choices, and peace out. Love you, Dad.
Love you too, buddy. Take
Bye
care.
bye.
Bye.